I believe we have all the folks in. Thank you to everyone who's joining us today. We are here to have a virtual public meeting about bus rapid transit and a new innovative bus service that we're bringing to Cincinnati. And we're delighted to be a part of this and to have this opportunity to share information about the project with you. I'm just going to go over a couple information about how we're going to run this virtual public meeting today. And as you may already be aware, your cameras are off and you are muted at the moment. And once we get into the Q&A session, which will follow the presentation, we will certainly be answering and addressing any comments you may have or questions that you may have. If you're joining us online to talk with us and let you know that you have a question, simply click the raise your hand icon. And when it's your turn, we will call on you and unmute your microphone so you'll be able to speak with the project team. You are also welcome to submit written questions at any point by using the Q&A function on the screen as well. If anybody is joining us by telephone today, to raise your hand to speak, all you have to do is hit *9. And then once we call on you and have unmuted your phone, you will just have to hit *6 to unmute the phone from your side once you have that prompt. This is some information that we will also go over again once we get into the Q&A session, but just wanted you to know how that was going to work over these next couple moments. At this point, I'd like to introduce you to our speakers. This evening, we have Khaled Shamut. He is the Chief Strategic Planning and Development Innovation Officer for Metro. He is also the BRT Project Manager. And we also have Steve Anderson, Director of Development and Innovation for Metro. And at this point, gentlemen, I will turn this over to you.
Thanks, Laura. Appreciate all of you gathering with us to talk a little reinventing Metro, a little bus rapid transit. Khaled, would you like to start us off with some words of wisdom or just some idea about what we'll be discussing this evening, you being the project manager?
Yeah, thank you, Steve. And good afternoon, everybody. Thank you all for joining us. And thank you for your interest in learning about the BRT project, as well as your interest in our services. We think this is a really critical project for SORTA, as well as our riders and the community at large. You'll learn a few interesting and great things about the project, as well as about our other services. And Steve is going to talk about some of the improvements that we've already made and will be making on our local service, as well as introducing the BRT project. And then I'll just talk a little bit more about some details or aspects of the BRT project. So back to you, Steve.
Thanks, Chief. So reinventing Metro is a plan that without the folks in Hamilton County who passed issue 7 a couple years ago, that's really been the drive for not just local bus service, but other exciting projects such as bus rapid transit. The Reinventing Metro plan is a comprehensive initiative that'll take a few years to complete. We're in the middle of year 2 right now. These are our goals. These are objectives with Reinventing Metro. Expanding regional connectivity. I mean, folks shouldn't have to take 3 and 4 transfers to go from Butler County to the airport if they show desire. We're a RTA, we're a regional authority. It's our job to kind of help shepherd the regional connectivity, and we have some projects in that area that are already starting to bear fruit. Driving economic development, of course, that's important. We want folks to be able to get access to good paying jobs, as well as attracting new business and employers. All of this to improve local and regional quality of life. So when businesses or sporting events or anything are looking to either do business or relocate in our region, they know we've got a robust transit system that can support folks moving around quickly, efficiently, and safely without the use of a private automobile. Next slide. So we've already been busy. We're in year 2 of Reinventing Metro. Year 1, these are the highlights. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention our 24-hour service. We have 7 routes, mainline routes, local bus service that operates 24/7, 365. That makes us the 2nd agency behind Cleveland to have 24-hour service in our state. In addition, we've already expanded hours and times, more service span, more frequency on a lot of routes. And we've already started to see some good ridership gains with that. Year two, we're already a few months into year two. Year one started off in May of 2021. Here we are in the fall of 2022, and ridership has made a great return. We're ahead of a lot of our peers. The nation's probably in the 60 to 70% return of pre-pandemic ridership. Metro's more in the 80 to 85%. Some routes are better, some routes are worse. And we're ready, we're safe, we're affordable. Certainly with the economic concerns that are going on right now, more folks are seeing us as a viable option. In addition to sweetening that pot and attracting riders back, we've had free weekend rides all throughout the summer. And it's been going on for a few months now, our university discount program, where UC and Cincinnati State students and staff do ride free until Halloween. So we're starting to lay the foundation for just a bigger portfolio of services. In addition, the bus stop, that's everybody's first contact with our local service. We're putting out new shelters. Some have gone in the ground, they're already out, as well as new and more improved benches, lights, and bus stop signs. So be on the lookout for those in the next coming year or so. One of the great things about my job here at Metro is I get to lead our local bus service improvements with the team. Some local route improvements you may or may not be aware of that are coming December 4th. That's right around the corner. We're extending our mainline routes out to areas such as Sharonville and Blue Ash. These were areas that were identified in the Reinventing Metro plan back when the early customer engagement, community engagement back in 2017, 2018 timeframe, and we really just don't have enough good local service out to areas with higher paying jobs. These are the Sharonvilles, the Blue Ashes, the Kenwoods. And so we heard you, and we're implementing it. December 4th, you can see some of the improvements here. In addition, just for example, Route 17 Hamilton, the Seven Hills area, they will be getting 15-minute service, where previously it was 35 to 45 minutes. And that would also include better service on the weekends. So we are going farther out to the suburbs and the northern areas throughout our county for much more frequent basis. So we're excited about that, and it'll be here before you know it. Why would we do that? Well, there's a few reasons. We're the county's transit service now. They passed the levy, so everyone in the county has some skin in the game. We're trying to reach better, higher paying jobs, trying to get a hold of more transit dependent persons, folks that would need us. And the demographics and the way things have been going in the last 20 years, and certainly this got enhanced by COVID. Folks live in different areas now. What is considered a transit dependent area or maybe a gentrified area, all this has changed since the last time Metro really reimagined their routes. So we're trying to get out to where folks are. These are the results of those changes. 40,000 more accessible jobs by local service. That's a whole lot. There's maybe half a million jobs in the county. 40,000 more additional on local service is certainly a big deal. But in addition, 20,000 of those, half of those would be higher paying jobs. These are jobs that are paying in advance of $50,000 to $60,000 per year. And all of this to say we're connecting, we're doing our mission statement, connecting folks to jobs, education, and medical appointments. That's literally our core mission. So we couldn't be more excited about building up that local network to support the premium BRT network that I'll touch on, that Holly will focus on in a couple slides. So what is bus rapid transit? Well, I'm glad you asked. Basically, in a nutshell, it's a bus that mimics train service. And by mimicking train service, we're talking about a high quality, flexible service that has the stations that feel like rail. You have the bus wrapped a certain way. Even some of our transit partners across the world have even covered some of the tires so you don't even see the top of the tire, similar to rail. But it's basically trying to combine the speed and efficiency of rail transit with the flexibility of traditional bus service. So the main ingredients for a great BRT network is speed and comfort. Speed allows transit to be an option to folks that may be using a car or have access to a vehicle. And what we're looking at is the travel time competitive. So frequent service, that's a no-brainer. Frequent service, we have frequent service on our local bus routes, but a BRT by definition is frequent. You're thinking 15 to 10 minutes or better. The spacing of the bus stops is also a difference from local service. The bus stations are spaced about a half mile apart. This means less stopping, more going. So you're really mainly hitting those main destinations and or transfer points. Smart traffic signals. This is a big deal. So the bus would talk to the traffic signal and tell the traffic signal, hey, I'm coming. Can you hold that green light just a little bit longer? Or, hey, red light, can you hurry up and cycle through to a green to keep those buses going? That's the attractiveness of the service. Imagine, if you will, you're driving down a dedicated bus lane and there's a queue of cars to your right, and you're in this bus in its own lane, it's wrapped, and you get a green light while the rest of the car traffic to your right still has that red. Those are the kind of improvements, that's the kind of game changer that BRT can be if implemented correctly. To my next point, the dedicated bus lanes are a major part of that. Sorry, go back where I was. The busways, these are huge in terms of making sure the BRT has a consistent and fast travel time. This allows the buses to bypass traffic congestion and makes the service more attractive. The next two bullets, paid in advance fares. Basically, pay your fare before you get on the bus. You're in a bus, you're in a local service, and then you have a passenger that is digging through their purse to get pennies out of the bottom of it. It starts to add up. You talk about stop after stop after stop. BRT, that's not really an issue. These fares are paid in advance. These folks are just basically gliding onto your bus. Either they're doing a visual validation or a tap on, and they can enter either and exit through the front or back of the door, similar to our streetcar in Cincinnati. So some of the other amenities that come along with BRT is the comfort, the convenience. Enhanced bus stations are a huge deal. These are not your dad's bus stops. They are nice, attractive shelters. The picture in the top left, that's in Indianapolis. You notice the wood grain on the panel on the ceiling. They have comfortable seating. There's signage everywhere. It's well lit. Typically, these are landscaped and have full ADA ramps. Have wayfinding to tell you not only what's around the station, but what you can get to when you hop on that bus. In addition, free Wi-Fi, that's a necessity. Your time is money. There'll be Wi-Fi at the stations. There's Wi-Fi already on our local buses, but we know that the convenience is important to our customers to be able to get things done while they're waiting for the bus or while they're on the bus. I mentioned the ADA accessibility. That's a necessity. We're a federal grant recipient. We have to make things that we construct fully accessible. So there'll be the full complement of easy entry points for wheelchairs, mobility scooters, and what have you. The same level boarding I touched on earlier, as well as the real-time information. We have some of these signs out at the Northside Transit Center, something similar that'll tell you when the bus is not only coming, but if things happen, like a bus breaks down, that time will update in real time, so that you can plan your trip on that, as well as bike accommodations. Cincinnati is a great city to bike and walk in and use transit, and we've gone around the country, about 10 different other BRT properties, and we've seen buses that have the bike racks out in the front like ours do now, or there's other places that have actual bike parking in the bus. So that's another great feature of BRT. So the benefits of BRT, again, it's a bus that mimics rail transit. We're looking for speed and comfort. The social, environmental, and economic benefits I'll lay out here. Certainly the travel time is exciting for folks that want to use our service, but it just simply takes too long. That's attracting not only more of your current ridership to ride more frequently, but also attracting new riders. These are accessible. They're completely ADA accessible. They are a game changer for folks that maybe need to get across town, or it's just basically, acting like a rail system. It's comfortable, it's reliable. The environmental benefits of transit, I think folks well know that, a bus is certainly full, 50 people on a bus is certainly more environmentally friendly than 50 cars on the road. We reduce traffic congestion, vehicle emissions, and we improve air quality. but also we're looking at alternative fuels for this BRT fleet as well. And the economic benefits, Holly's going to touch on this a lot more, but I think you'll be certainly impressed to see some of the before and after photos of what BRT, when it's done right, can do for a corridor, for a neighborhood, for a city, for a region. And with that, I'll turn it over to the chief. He'll take us home on more of the things about BRT. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Steve. So you've heard from Steve about some of the improvements that we've made regarding the local services and the impact of transit on access to jobs and those impressive numbers that you saw on one of the slides. 40,000 jobs now can have access to transit when they didn't, and so on. And these kind of advantages and results are also expected from a BRT system. The BRT system will connect residents to more jobs across our entire service area or along these corridors. It'll make it easier to get to these destinations, in addition to other great destinations as well. So the BRT is a critical component of that. However, the BRT also positively impact the infrastructure. So for the BRT system to be successful, we have to have good connectivity to the stations, which means that sidewalks need to be renovated or upgraded or added if there's no existing sidewalks. The roadway infrastructure will need to be fixed as well to accommodate the BRT system. And at the end of the day, when you have a good BRT system that's well connected with the rest of the bus network, then you have good mobility and you have efficiency and travel using the transit system. And that's really a critical component to attract new businesses to our community. That's one thing that many businesses look for when they decide where to locate their businesses, especially whether it's warehousing or manufacturing or service oriented type of businesses. They want communities with good, efficient transit system so that their employees and workers can get to their jobs easily and on time. And with all of these improvements comes also health related improvements, as people will tend to walk more if they're using transit, which is always a good thing. Next, and the transformation of the community once a BRT system is implemented is really visible in these two pictures that you see on the right side of the slide. The top picture and the lower picture are of the same area, pretty much the same area. The top one is before the BRT was implemented in Cleveland. The lower one is pretty much the same area after the BRT was implemented. And you can see the drastic improvements to that neighborhood, with these wide, nice sidewalks, better roadway infrastructure for the vehicles, nice stations for the BRT, the trees, landscaping, and all of that. It makes it a more inviting, inviting space for people to come and walk and use transit and get to their destinations. Next slide, please. And this is another example of how BRT transforms a community or a corridor. Again, these two pictures are before. The one on the left is before, the one on the right is after, from Eugene, Oregon. And again, you can see on the left, there's pretty much no sidewalk there, and there isn't much. The picture on the right, which is after BRT was implemented, it looks a much nicer, a more safe place, and more attractive place as well. It's adding value to these communities. Next slide, please. So now that you're experts on BRT and what different elements of BRT, and you probably already know that here in Hamilton County, we're looking at 4 potential corridors for BRT system. And these 4 corridors are Montgomery Road, Reading Road, Hamilton Avenue, and Glenway Avenue. And we're looking at all 4 so we can select 2 of the 4 that we would implement in phase 1 of the BRT. But let's look at each of these corridors, spend a minute or so on each of these corridors. So next slide, please. So starting from the west side, look at the Glenway Avenue. That's potentially going to be about 9 miles, starting from downtown and ending at Park Crest on the west side. The alignment, which is still under planning, could be on could run on West 8th, Warsaw, and Glenway. That's if this corridor is selected, then potentially it may run on these segments. But all of that will be finalized once this study is complete. It'll hit the Glenway Crossing Transit Center as well on its way, as well as that shopping area, among other shopping areas, schools, and so on. Next slide, please. The next one is Hamilton Avenue. And again, it would start from downtown and go up on potentially on Vine Street, Clifton Avenue, Ludlow Avenue, Hamilton Avenue, to terminate at Hilltop Plaza at in Mount Healthy. And along its path would be, the Uptown area, UC campus, Northside Transit Center, and the planned North College Hill Transit Center as well. And it's about 12 miles in length. Next one, please. The third one is Reading Road. Again, starting from downtown, it'll potentially go up Vine Streets, Martin Luther King Drive, and then Reading Road to terminate somewhere around Galbraith Road. And along its path would be the Uptown area, the planned transits, and the Uptown area and the planned transit center near UC hospitals. And it's about 12 miles in length. Next one, please. The fourth one is Montgomery Road, about 13 miles long. Again, starts in downtown and may potentially go along Gilbert Avenue and then Montgomery Road to terminate at Kenwood Mall, and serving the planned Walnut Hills Transit Center as well. Next slide, please. So the study that's underway right now, as we said, is looking at all of these 4 corridors. The objective of the study is to select 2 of these 4 that we will implement first in phase 1. And to do that, the consulting team is looking at different variables and different data, and conducting all kinds of analysis that looks into the potential ridership at each of these corridors, how each corridor is going to improve transit speed and its reliability along these corridors, how many customers or potential customers it could serve along these corridors, what kind of economic development impacts the BRT will have along each of these corridors, as well as the feasibility of implementing certain BRT related infrastructure along these corridors, such as TSP or transit signal priority, which Steve talked about, which would give buses priority to clear intersections, where we can locate BRT stations if we have space for them along these corridors, and if we can dedicate a lane, or at least a lane for segments along those corridors, dedicate these lanes just for bus only. So all of these, among other input, the consulting team is taking into consideration to see which 2 of the 4 would be done in phase 1. Next slide, please. So once the 2 corridors are identified, then we'll move into the second part of the study, which is try to put a little bit more meat on the design of these two corridors or two BRT lines by identifying the exact alignment, so to know exactly on what street these routes or the BRT will be running, where the stations will be located, what kind of and level of service that will provide, meaning what the frequency of service will be, how often the buses will arrive, every 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 12 minutes, from what time to what time, span of service, what time the service will start in the morning, when will it end at night. So that would be the second part once the two corridors are identified. We expect this study to conclude in spring of 2023, a few months from now. And then, next slide, please. And then we'll share that with the federal government, FDA, for the review and approval. And once we get the green light from them, we'll move into the design and construction phases of this project. With the, we anticipate to start service on at least one, if not both corridors in 2027. Next slide, please. So, as you can see, this is it's a pretty involved process, pretty involved project, and we are definitely interested in your input, your comments, and we certainly appreciate you being on this call today. And we have more outreach that's that's coming, whether it's in person or virtual, as well as on our website. We have information, so we urge you to participate. And if you know friends or relatives, encourage them to participate. Give their comments, give us your thoughts as well, and make sure that you visit the site that appears on the screen to take a survey. And the site is it's all one word, no spaces, metrobrtstudy.com/participate. And with that, I'll turn it over to Laura.
Great, thank you, Khalid. I just want to reiterate what you were saying about the survey. On the screen now, we have a QR code that you can use your phones to scan that, and that will take you to the website directly, or you can type it in at metrobrtstudy.com/participate. Also on our website, we have the some options for you that if you have a group or a community that you would like a presentation, you can click on the box there and request a presentation to your group. We would be happy to do that. And there's also the ability to contact us at any point if you have any questions that come up after today. Throughout this process, please send us your thoughts, your comments, your questions, and we will get back with you. So as for today, though, we would like to take any questions that you might have, as we talked about at the beginning of the presentation. To let us know that you have a question, just simply click on the raise your hand button. And as we see that, we'll call on you and open the line so you can talk with the project team. Or you can type in your questions using the meeting Q&A option as well. If you are with us by phone, hit *9 to raise your hand to speak. And then once you're prompted, hit *6 to unmute your phone. So at this point, if anybody has questions, feel free. I see one question from Andrea Benton Bailey. Andrea, if you want to go ahead and ask your question, go ahead.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hi, okay. So I'm from Cincinnati. Metro got me to and from where I needed to go. I now live in England and it's very late here, but they have rail and it's very convenient. And I have a couple of questions about BRT. When I was in Cincinnati in the summertime, I had instances where the routes I waited on never showed up. And when I'd call Metro to complain about it, essentially, I was told by a staff member, quote, "It has been a nightmare because of COVID, manning issues, routes going 24 hours. So for something that's supposed to be rapid as BRT, how can we trust it to be rapid if there are manning issues? And then my other question is, why are we not trying to expand upon the streetcar? That is very convenient to have, but going from Finley Market to the banks, okay, why can't we have that go uptown? Because that will be more useful, because streetcars just seem more efficient. You don't need tons of people to run one streetcar. Like, you'll need a whole bunch of people to operate buses for bus rapid transit. And it just seems like it may be more expensive short term to expand the streetcar, but long term, it seems to be more of a benefit. So your thoughts, please.
Well, great, thank you. I'm gonna toss this over to Steve or Khaled to go ahead and answer.
I'll take it. Thank you for calling, by the way, and thanks for calling, even though it's that late in your time in England. For the level of service, yes. So we, just like any other transit agency across the country, we've been suffering from shortage of drivers, and we are missing some trips every single day. That's a fact. We're not denying that. We're working on fixing these. We're missing probably 2% of the trips on a single day. The good news, which is not really to sugarcoat it, but the good news is, at least here we have in Cincinnati, we have relatively speaking, pretty good frequency. So if a bus doesn't show up, one of these 2% trips is missed. In most cases, there's another bus coming in about 20, maybe 25 minutes. Where other cities, because they haven't gone back to level of service they had pre-COVID, if a bus is missed, is not showing up, there won't be another bus for at least 40, 45 minutes, in some cases 60 minutes. But we are working on trying to hire more and more drivers. So we're trying to take care of this, because we know it is an issue and we have to fix it, and we're trying our best really to fix that. As in terms of how it's going to impact the BRT, and you raise a good point. The BRT won't start until 2027. So by then, we expect, and I hope and I pray that we don't have this issue by 2027. We're seeing signs that the hiring of drivers and recruitment of drivers is getting better. And we hope that by sometime next year, middle of next year, no later than end of next year, that the recruitment of drivers is not an issue anymore. So that should not impact the operations of the future BRT. To your other point, the streetcar, again, I mean, that's a good question. We have nothing to do with the streetcar. Let's put this out on the table. SORTA does not own the streetcar. We don't run it. We have nothing to do with it. This is a city system. The city owns it. The city runs it. But having said that, just for FYI, the streetcars have certain limitations, unlike the buses. So to take a streetcar up up the hill to uptown and so on would be pretty challenging. It's much easier to do that on a bus. That's one. Plus the cost. The cost of extending like 1 mile of a streetcar is probably about 20 folds of what you can do with a bus. So that becomes another concern as well. But again, we have nothing to do with this streetcar. Maybe the city have their own plans. I have no idea.
Okay, great, Khaled. We have a couple questions in the Q&A box. First one is from Cynthia Wright, and she's actually asking a question that we've heard a couple times during the in-person public meetings. And she would like to know, would the BRT buses replace the existing routes that the buses are that the existing buses are running along? So let me repeat that. Would the BRT buses replace the existing routes that the buses are running along?
Sounds like a question that Steve would like to answer.
I would, thank you. Great question. We've been talking about that. The short answer is no, we would still have some type of underlying local service. What we've seen in our peers is that, maybe, for example, Corridor A gets a 15-minute BRT where previously there was a 20-minute local or a 10-minute local. They may take the 15-minute BRT and then have a 30-minute local. So if you really need to stop on Williams Avenue, that is your stop. You will still have that option, but folks could use a combination of both the local and the BRT service to get where they need to go on the corridor. And we found that a lot of people do migrate to the faster service at the expense of just a little more walking distance. I hope that answers the question.
Sounds good to me, Steve. We'll let Cynthia know if she has, or she can follow up with us if she has any additional question on that. Our next question is from Matt Jacob, and he wants to know, from your presentation, it appears that your process has been to 1, choose the mode, BRT, 2, evaluate the corridors, this now, and 3, develop the plan. Using page 12 of Christoph Spieler's books, Trains, Buses, and People, we should have started with 0, agree on goals, 1, identify density, 2, identify centers, 3, identify bottlenecks, 4, identify corridors, 5, decide on service level, capacity, and travel time, pick mode. Why has SORTA skipped these multiple steps? What is the evidence that SORTA has that any of these corridors have the appropriate density, connect the most important centers, or lack of bottlenecks?
Good question. An interesting one as well. So this study that's underway right now is really not the first step of this effort. It is the second step. The first step was the Reinventing Metro Plan, which was done a few years ago by another consulting team. And the Reinventing Metro Plan looked really at all aspects of the transit system and services for our county or service area. So it looked at how to best improve the transit and mobility across the service area. So it identified improvements to the local service, local routes, such as adding frequencies, span of service, weekend service, as well as adding additional routes and adding crosstown routes as well. Also looked at express service, how to improve that so that we can serve, the outer areas, the suburbs and beyond. But it also identified 2 other modes of service. One is the mobility on demand, which we are actually implementing. And then it also recommended BRT service. And it identified these 4 corridors. So this came out of the Reinventing Metro Plan. And in that, from that analysis, they did look at pretty much everything that Matt has listed there. What's the ridership, the densities, and all of that. And that's why these 4 corridors were recommended as part of the Reinventing Metro Plan.
Thank you, Khalid. We have a question from Jay Cincinnati, who's asking, many BRT systems wind up in what is called BRT creep, where the end goal turns out to be more like a regular bus line, but with maybe more frequent service. What will Metro do to prevent this from happening?
Shall I take this one, Steve?
Yeah, I guess.
Unless you want to take it, I don't mind. Take a shot at it.
Okay, I'll take a swing at this one. Jay, great question, spot on. We are very, very focused on making sure that, so BRT, there's a range, there's a spectrum. You have what's called, BRT light, you have BRT super light. Some nearby areas that will not be named have some BRT super light corridor. Now they're looking at a more robust BRT system. And then you have like full-fledged BRT, Bogota, places, Curitiba, these places have full BRT where it's very, very dedicated right of way as stations that would act like train stations any other place. So I would say, from my viewpoint, the biggest determinant of BRT creep is how much of your corridor is in a dedicated right of way, or in a right of way you can control and keep out of mixed traffic. So we're determined, but we don't know yet. We do not know the two corridors, but we're certainly looking at what is the high level ratio of how much dedicated laneage we can get. And that is going to be a very robust conversation with us internally as well as stakeholders, because that's literally when the rubber meets the road. So I'm going to pause right there, Khalid, unless you had anything else to add.
Yeah, I'll add a couple of things. Again, good question. And I'm just going to say, we are guilty of that as SORTA, because at one point, several years ago, I don't know when, I wasn't here really, Metro Plus was introduced. And it was supposed to be kind of like BRT. And we all know that it's not true BRT. So that could fit your description of BRT creep, where it had somewhat decent frequency, but it's still running with mixed traffic. And that's an impedance. So you don't get that true BRT experience. And we are avoiding this with this new process that we're following. So there'll be dedicated lanes, at least on segments of these corridors. Stations will be spaced, at least, about maybe half-mile apart, again, to make it, faster service. We're introducing technologies, transit signal priority, so buses can clear intersections. So again, it's faster. So this is a totally different approach than what was taken, when Metro Plus was implemented.
Okay, great. Jay actually had another question. The question is, for rapid transit to function and have a good ridership, stations need to be around areas that are pedestrian friendly and have a lot to offer in terms of mixed use facilities. Will Metro consider this, and will routes have these kinds of facilities on them?
Steve?
Sure, I'll take this one. Thank you again, Jay. Great question. You're exactly right. For BRT to function and have good ridership, stations do need to be around areas. But as Khalid kind of alluded to in his part of the presentation, it's a game changer because you are able to make areas more pedestrian and bicycle and ultimately people friendly. A lot of the construction that is going to take, is a multi-year construction project, is literally rebuilding some of these areas, whether it's an interchange or the way the street interplays with the businesses in front of it. So all of that, if we're touching it, working with our partners, you can best believe that we will make things more pedestrian friendly. We know we have a partnership with our municipal partners to make that happen, but absolutely, this is a game changer in terms of making things more mixed use. Some of that happens organically with the market anyway, but certainly we'll be changing the infrastructure landscape along two of these corridors if all goes according to plan.
I think Cynthia had a follow-up comment. And just to clarify what Steve said, so let's assume we have BRT on one of these corridors, implement on one of these corridors, and we already have existing local service. It doesn't mean that we're going to keep all of that local service there. There may be opportunities to move things around, and it could be, the same routes still there, but the frequency may be different. Because the alignment of the local routes is not necessarily the same as the BRT. So the BRT, and I'm just going to pick, a corridor at random. Let's start with the first one on the right, Montgomery. So it's going to run from downtown and terminate at Kenwood. But you still need regular service to go beyond Kenwood, or some existing local route that goes from downtown to Macmillan, and then it's making a right turn to go east. Well, we can't take that route out because it's still needed, even though there's some duplication with the BRT service along Gilbert portion. So it's not like one size fits all. Local service will still be required for these reasons. But where there's an opportunity to reduce or eliminate some of the local service so that we're avoiding complete duplication, then yeah, we'll certainly entertain that. I hope that clarifies the answer, Cynthia.
Okay, great. Kevin Shaw is asking, is there a metric, e.g. IIT-DP standards for BRT or pair comparison city system, which we are anticipating our system will look most like? Will the routes chosen of the 4 of them impact the metric, or will it be similar no matter which is chosen?
You want me to take it? I'll take it.
You've been to more of these properties, Chief. So
we are looking at well. Let me start with the study. So the consulting team, is looking at other peer agencies that implemented other BRT systems, and they are collecting the data and summaries about these systems. In terms of how they're functioning, the implementation of it, level of service, ridership, and all of that. So that is something we're looking at as part of the study. In addition, we are visiting some of these existing BRT systems across the country, again, just to learn from them and see, what are the good things, elements that we need to include, and what are the pitfalls that we need to avoid. And in terms of metrics, really, it's looking at what the ridership will be, and the potential impact on economic development along these routes, and those are things that can be measured, in addition to others, in terms of the environment, reduction of the pollution, and all of that. But there are certain metrics that will be established and monitored as well.
Okay, great, thank you. Matt Jacob has another question. He's asking, does SORTA consider the Vine Street Hill between Uptown and the Rhine a bottleneck for the Hamilton and Reading corridors? It seems prone to reducing speeds for the whole system, and the winding hill is less than comfortable to ride. Why isn't Reading Road being considered for the Reading corridor?
Very good question. And as I said when I was presenting the slides on the specific corridors, that really we have nothing etched in stone right now. These alignments came from the Reinventing Metro Plan. But again, part of this study is once the 2 corridors are selected, then they'll jump into the details of that service. So one corridor may end up running on Vine, one may not, or maybe both, whatever. We really don't know yet. That will come as in the second part of this study. But it is a legitimate concern, obviously.
One of the participants would like to know if any of this will lead to actual light rail.
Your guess is as good as ours. The main justification for light rail is ridership. Light rail is not cheap, it's extremely expensive. And unless you have, and I don't really know what the number is, unless you have a minimum number of passengers on a daily basis going along a particular corridor to justify a light rail, then it will not happen. And that's why many cities and agencies opt to implement BRT rather than light rail because of that cost. They don't have that much ridership to justify spending the hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars on light rail. Okay.
We do have a somewhat of a question on Facebook by Roger Hildebrand, and he's asking, what about the Route 90? We have asked for clarification, Roger, specifically about what you're asking. Feel free to either clarify during this meeting, or please send us an email at metrobrtstudy.com, and we can try to get you some more information to answer that question. Mike G has added a question, and he's asking, have you considered designing routes so that they go to and through downtown? For example, if you combine the Hamilton Avenue route and the Montgomery Road route into one route that goes through downtown, you double the number of destinations a rider can reach without a transfer at no additional cost, as you would use the same number of buses and drivers and can use the same schedule. You also avoid wasting time making U-turns downtown on each route. E.g., one could go from College Hill to Walnut Hills with no transfer.
Looks like a question for Steve.
I mean, it's a great question. Thank you for that, Mike G. So if I understand you correctly, I know we're not having a discourse, but combining the routes, so a Hamilton Avenue turns into a Montgomery Road and goes in and goes out. You know, theoretically, there's nothing that would prevent us from doing that when the BRT system comes online, for example. And folks could typically stay on if they are going that direction. But yeah, we would do that anyway, just through scheduling, where, you know, the red line would turn into the blue line and then go back blue line and come back into the red line. If that was determined the most efficient and effective use of resources. But in terms of transferring fee, we waived those. So as part of reinventing Metro, we got rid of the paper transfer. I'm not sure if you're talking about transfer physically or transfer the financial aspect. We got rid of the second part. I hope that answers your question, and great suggestion, and we'll definitely keep it in mind.
At this point, I think that is it of the questions that have come up. I don't see any more hands or anything in the Q&A. Just want to give everybody another minute to submit anything. And if not, we're talking about, we're nearing the hour. We were going to repeat this presentation at the top of the hour. So if anybody joined us late, you can hear the beginning of the presentation again as we start it once again at 6 o'clock.
We have one more question from Matt Jacob.
Thank you. Yes, it just popped up. Matt's asking, right now, SORTA's network is almost exclusively hub and spoke, yet crosstown routes were part of what was promised with the levy. Can you describe how the proposed transit centers might fix this?
Very nice and interesting question, Matt, and you hit it right on the nail. You are absolutely right. The current network is still considered hub and spoke. However, our goal is to get away from that. And, you know, we've introduced a couple of routes last year. We're introducing, you know, a few more routes as we, you know, implement the rest of reinventing Metro. However, as we add more and more transit centers, right now we have Uptown Transit Center, North College Hill Transit Center, Walnut Hills Transit Center, and potentially something on the west side, you know, they're considering somewhere around Glenway. We have at least 4 that are being planned, and we look for more locations. And just like, you know, we have the existing Oakley, as well as North Side Transit Centers. We are trying to build this network or these nodes within our system, so that will help us get away from the hub and spoke and transform it to more of a multinodal system to be more efficient for our customers. Thank you for that question. That's a good one.
Great. And Roger on Facebook has clarified his questions regarding Route 90. He's saying it's already on an existing route being considered. It is not a true BRT in all points, but does cover many of the BRT points. Will it be discontinued? Dedicated painted buses for this route are already being used for other revenue routes.
Sounds like a difficult question. I'll pass it on to Steve.
Yeah, thank you, Chief.
If you'd like me to reread that, I kind of muddled that.
Yes, please, if you don't mind.
Okay, he said it's already, I'm talking about Route 90, it's already on an existing route being considered. It is not a true BRT in all points, but does cover many of the BRT points. Will it be discontinued? And then he says dedicated painted buses for this route are already being used for other revenue routes or RTS.
So Roger, that's a great question. We are actually looking at the existing Route 90 Metro Plus as part of our preliminary screening. If, for example, Montgomery Road was chosen, a lot of what Route 90 does is mimicked by the Montgomery Road corridor. So it's too soon to tell the future of Metro Plus, but I could see it going either way, where folks realize that with the transfers and the multimodal network that we built in 5 years, that really that Route 90 is really not, it's duplicative and not necessary. So folks would just hop on the Montgomery Road or whatever was in the Montgomery Road corridor, whether it's BRT or enhanced bus service. But it's too soon to determine what the future is of Route 90, although that is something we are looking at as we move forward.
Okay, great. Matt's asking, will the BRT buses have doors on both sides, left and right, like the streetcar, and be able to have stations on both sides of the street and center stations?
Great question, Matt. That really all depends on which corridors are selected and what we can do within each of these corridors. So if a corridor has the potential for us to have stations, in the center, in the middle of the road, center stations, then definitely we have to have doors on both sides of the vehicles. But if the selected corridors prohibit us from that, and all stations are on the right side of the roadway, then obviously there's no need for that. So it's a bit too early to decide. It's going to be driven by the corridor and the right of way, what we can do with that.
Jay would like to know what happened to Route 61.
I'll take this one, Chief. Jay's keeping me and us on our toes tonight. Route 61, thank you for that question, Jay. We so very much wanted to add 61 to our December changes. However, as one of the previous callers had mentioned, we still want to be a little bit cognizant of our labor and those resources, right? So we are looking probably implement Route 61 sometime early next year, 2023. Galbraith is still coming. We're super excited about that route and can't wait to put it out.
Great, thank you, Steve. Roger over on Facebook was asking, if Glenway is chosen, will it be using the Glenway Crossing Center?
Probably, but I mean, for us it would make sense, but we really have no idea yet. Steve, do you want to jump in here?
I mean, we've had discussions about where Glenway should be, but Glenway is where it is. So yeah, I would just mimic what Hala was saying. It's too soon to tell. 50-50.
Okay, great. Then Julie Brown has her hand up, so we are going to unmute her, and Julie, you can talk with the team.
Hi, are you able to hear me?
We can.
Yeah.
Hi, my name is Julie Brown. I'm from College Hill. Just want to say hi, Khalid. You and I spoke when you were at the College Hill Library a couple months ago talking about this project. Not sure if you remember me or not, but my question is in regards to the width of streets in College Hill and in Northside. Our street pavements are 40 feet wide. And many of the pictures that you showed for Cleveland and Oregon, those streets look like they were 60 feet wide. In some of our previous communications, I've shared with you with concerns regarding waiting at the bus stop with 40-foot wide streets and maybe 8 or 9 foot wide sidewalks. And it's actually a deterrent for our neighbors riding the bus because they don't feel safe. How, if at all, will bus rapid transit lanes impact that concern with safety?
Very good question, Julie, and thank you for joining us. And yes, I do, of course, remember you. You've been a good, friend of Metro. Again, it is really a good question, and I think Steve may have addressed this in the earlier segment, and you may not have been on that one. Not your specific question, but in general, that the BRT system comes in different flavors. So you have, like the perfect BRT system where you have a dedicated lane just for the buses. Nobody's going to get on that lane, and it goes from the beginning to the end of that route, right? So this is like the perfect scenario for a BRT. But then you have other flavors where you have a dedicated lane, but it's kind of mixed, with other things. In some cases, you have a dedicated lane, but it's only for a portion of the corridor. So let's say the corridor is 10 miles, and you may have a dedicated lane for half of the 10 miles, right? In some cases, and we've seen some of those in other cities, Indianapolis is a good example of that, where the BRT has its own lane for, let's say, a couple miles, 2 or 3 miles, straight, but then it loses its, bus only lane because of the street width, as you pointed out. And then it's back into kind of mixed traffic for maybe a mile or two, and then it goes in its, bus only lane again. That's not really the ideal situation for a BRT, but it's way better and much faster than, regular bus service. So all of that will be considered when selecting, these routes, these corridors, and designing the service. And with 40-foot, I mean, this is at least 3 lanes. It could be, close if you want to push it 4 lanes, but it's at least 3 lanes. And we've seen examples in some cities where they had 3 lanes actually, and they had a pretty decent BRT service. As a matter of fact, the consultant team that we have working on this project, did work on some of these projects where, they had limited right of way and successfully made the BRT work. But you have a good point, especially in terms of safety, and all of these aspects will be taken into consideration. Will be, once the system is being designed, location of the stations, given the limited right of way, making the station and whatever else is around the station, safe for those who are waiting, other pedestrians, and so on. I hope that answered your question, Julie.
Yes, it did. Thank you very much. We actually in College Hill and North Side have had several instances of cars leaving the roadway. We have been lucky in College Hill that they have not struck any pedestrians, but they have leveled a few bus stop signs. So we look forward to those additional bus benches, because right now in College Hill, we don't have many of them. A lot of people have to literally sit on the pavement while they're waiting for the bus. So even if the Hamilton Avenue corridor is not chosen, we look forward to at least some bus benches to help us provide that need for safety.
Right. Great. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you, Julie and Khalid. Matt Jacob has a question, and he is asking, since placemaking is a large part of successfully integrating BRT stations into neighborhoods, is SORTA planning to employ or consult with local architects or others outside the transportation industry when designing these features?
Steve, do you want to take that one?
No, I'll defer to the architect that happens to be the project manager. Sorry.
No, you're fine. You're fine. We definitely understand the significance of the BRT system, and the service. And this is the first time that we're implementing this through BRT in our community. So we want to make sure that we get it right, because we definitely would like to implement phase 2, the other 2 corridors and more of that. Once we get to that point after this study and we get the green light from the FTA, from the federal government, to move on to design, then definitely the right consultants will be engaged to provide the best services for our project and our community as well. I cannot guarantee it's going to be a local, because it has to be a competitive bid. But we will ensure that whatever consultant is selected to do the design is top-notch, and they've done enough of these projects to give us the best product for our community.
Okay, great, thank you. It looks like we have addressed all the questions on Facebook and the questions in the Q&A. If anybody has any other questions, now's your chance.
There's one more question.
Thank you. Matt is asking, will there be community engagement at that point?
I'm suspecting that this is in reference to the previous question.
I believe so, yes.
Yes, definitely. Yes.
Yes. Yes, Matt, actually, thank you for bringing that up. The community engagement is, as we've said before, is a very important part of this question, or excuse me, this project, as we go forward. To stay on top of what's going on community engagement wise, we encourage you to keep visiting our website at metrobrtstudy.com/participate as we schedule new public engagement meetings that are designed for the public. We'll have the information up on that page. And you are also welcome to go onto the website and sign up for or subscribe for updates. And we'll be sending out project updates via email periodically to also keep you up to date as to what's going on, where we're going to be, and when those types of engagements are going to happen. Also, there's a opportunity, if you go onto the website and click on the Contact Us, you are welcome to request a presentation, and for your community or an organization. We're all about trying to get the word out as much as we can and address the questions and listen to what people have to say about this project. As I've been talking, Julie is asking, is this meeting recording going to be available online? And the answer to that is yes. It is on Facebook right now. And I believe after we finish this meeting, it'll take a few minutes to load, but that will be on Facebook. But we will also be posting a recording of this on our website. Again, that's on the participate page. With that, as I mentioned, if you have any additional questions, you can go to us, send it to us on the Contact Us page. And I'm sorry, I'm getting a signal.
There is one more question on Facebook, Laura.
Okay, thank you. Mimi, can you go ahead and read that? I am not seeing that at the moment.
Yep, absolutely. We have a question from Carson Sees or Size, who asks, how many bus routes will there be in 2023? Got that number off the top of your head, Steve?
More than we have now.
That's a good answer.
I don't have the specific number. I think it's somewhere mid-40s, Holland, but we will have more than what we have now. Things are still kind of in flux with driver shortages and things of that nature. We have the buses, and we will continue to recruit and retain aggressively. So more than we have now.
Okay. Well, and with that, I believe we have addressed everything. So as I was saying, feel free to contact us through the website, or if you'd like to send us an email, we do have a project email address, which is info@metrobrtstudy.com. So thank you to everybody for joining us this evening, and we appreciate you taking the time to be here and to have this conversation with us.
Thank you.
Everybody, have a good night.
Thank you.